I feel like 2018 was in part the year where artistic integrity started becoming more important than solely marketability for whether or not a song becomes a hit.
Don't take that out of context, though. There's plenty of vapid nothing songs that were still massive, but especially after what happened to XXXTentacion earlier this year, the little bit of bubblegum there was just seemed to dry up.
And don't get me wrong, I like bubblegum pop when it's good. The problem is that most of it is not. Like, especially over the past 3 years, our sources of bubblegum pop have been pretty bad. So I'm happy to see it go away for a little bit while we listen to some better stuff, like these songs. These are the 10 best hit songs from the year-end Billboard Hot 100 from 2018 that did not make the same list from 2017. Let's get this started.
This is the first time I've ever enjoyed anything by this group to any extent.
And you know, normally it'd just be like, oh, this is surprisingly good. Like
the One Direction song I heard once that sounded okay, or that time Charlie Puth grew a personality.
But then I can just go, I'm proud of them for improving. Maybe they can get one of the best songs of the year in the next couple years or something, if they continue to go in a good direction. They're not supposed to jump this far up! What the fuck?
Let me just give you a proper indication of what's happened here.
The last time that 5 Seconds of Summer did anything remotely relevant was the 2016 Ghostbusters movie soundtrack.
Fuck, I bet none of you even realize that this watered-down pop-punk bullshit even existed before now.
And they basically went straight from that to this.
Something with power and passion behind it. It's got punch, and the subject matter feels like it really hits.
I tried going back and listening to 5 Seconds of Summer's older stuff to see, maybe there's something that I missed, like what happened with The Weeknd. But no. As it turns out, they just grew as artists. And they grew a hell of a lot in 2 albums. So I have a weird relationship with the music of Imagine Dragons. You know, I almost spelled that Dargans in the script. You know what? I'm just going to call them that.
The thing about Imagine Dragons is that I like their music more than I like any of their songs.
Right, so that doesn't make any sense.
See, there's maybe 1 or 2 Imagine Dragons songs that I'd actually seek out as a listening experience, but there's even less that I can honestly say that I truly dislike.
For me, the band is kind of like the anti-Maroon 5. They show a lot of skills that I do like, but they normally just don't persist throughout the entire song.
There's a real atmosphere to this song that sticks, and the lyrics actually serve to accentuate and expand upon.
See, that's the thing. These traits that I'm talking about, this is common in Imagine Dragons songs. The difference is you have a song like Believer, which seems to like go in 2 different directions thematically and just doesn't really work. And you have a song like Thunder that shits itself on the chorus. Then you have a song like Natural, and it's something that the rest of the library of Imagine Dragons songs isn't. It's consistent.
Even when the song goes into full bombast, it feels like it was building to that moment and earns it.
And it certainly helps that it's not, you know, trying as hard to be loud as some of the other songs. And, like, I think what I'm saying is tone down the dubstep guys. That worked, like, the one time. Not so much later. So last year, I expressed my enjoyment of what I'd heard thus far from a singer known as Khalid.
The general chill vibe of his music pairs well with his voice, and his song Location is still being played on the regular on the jukebox at my job.
When I changed jobs in 2018 to a place that actually had a jukebox, that is, and I noticed that other people didn't know that the song existed, and I knew what needed to be done. I mean, after all, this guy's too good to just fade into obscurity after, like, 2 hits.
Tell me what you love.
There's someone named Normani on this song too.
Based on what else I've heard from Normani, namely collaborative stuff and being in Fifth Harmony, yeah, the vibe of this song is all Khalid.
The song carries the same kind of vibe that Location does, although lyrically it steers away from the optimism that was especially apparent in Young, Dumb, and Broke.
But that's not to say that this is a particularly pessimistic song by any means.
Operating on the same set of emotions as Location, Love Lies appears to take a different route, putting more emphasis on the faults of the narrator in building a connection than requesting of the listener.
Combine this with the instrumental to the track, de-emphasizing the higher notes in comparison to Location's, well, for lack of a real adjective, jangly synth line, and you have what feels like somewhat of a companion piece to Location. Guys, I'm not kidding about this. We need to keep Khalid around. He's like the better version of Drake. Actually, it's kind of ironic I say that, considering that you probably think I'm about to segue into a Drake song. Gotcha, bitches!
I think putting this on my list hurts my credibility more than having 5 seconds of Summer on here.
But I do not care. These guys went from awful and repetitive to clever and catchy. They don't always hit it out of the park, but when they do, it's really good. And when you put a Pharrell beat behind that...
This probably wins the award I basically created last year of a song that I'm probably putting too high.
And that I can't explain why it's this high up, but I guess you could call this more of a personal choice than an outright critical one. I can say one particularly negative thing, more so about the music video, really.
There's no reason for the music video to be like twice the length of the song.
I mean, to be fair, it does have a decent narrative, but it ain't Thriller, I'll say that much. So now it's time for the Bitch About Todd in the Shadows Not Understanding Things award. You know, I'm starting to think that I should just do like a year-end award thing. I'll workshop that.
In case you forgot, the drop is the thing that's replaced the chorus. It's where the song builds up to a big, booming musical phrase rather than any repeated lyrics. Like sometimes they have lyrics sung over top of them, but you know, it's not a real chorus. It's like the riff in Jack and Diane. That's basically a drop. And that's what this part of the song is here, a drop. And I hate it. I didn't used to hate drops, but that's because they used to actually drop. They'd hit you like they fell from a 12-story building. But at some point after it went mainstream and all these big-name pop stars got involved, these drops, they just started slowly getting limper and sadder. What is that? What am I supposed to feel listening to that? I'm so sick of songs building up a head of steam like they're going somewhere, and then hitting some farting synthesizer line that means nothing.
No, the actual drop is the drop. The reason the drops seem to get limper is because they're not drops, they're simply refrains. I get the feeling that you don't particularly like refrains based on your comments about the song Just to See You Smile, where you call it credits music, the outro, when it's a refrain. And I get the feeling that your lack of understanding of the musical part of music is part of why you're bad at talking about it. And, you know, also the fact that you don't seem to understand that when you put notes in, that music is designed to elicit emotions, and that includes music without lyrics.
For instance, if a song like Wolves had more of an overtly romantic feel than one of searching and pursuit, it would be a very different song. Of course, it also probably wouldn't be what I'm talking about right now.
Because we have more innocent love songs out there, and
If my worst list this year is anything to go by,
it's obvious that I don't think Selena Gomez is very good at them at all. She works better with something that's a little bit more sensual and, you know, maybe in some cases a little darker.
Hell, I'd argue that Marshmello isn't a fan of straightforward love songs either, considering how complex the emotions of even a fucking joke song are.
So I think it works well that the music and the vocals blend together to make this more of a Night Hunter type of vibe.
The refrain doesn't need the intensity that Todd insists upon either, because that would defeat what the song really is.
I can agree with Todd on one particular aspect, though. I mean, Happier could have done a much better job on its refrain. I mean, it's just got a general happy feeling, and I think it really did need that burst of energy to put it over, and not just have that happy emotion just undercut by the tone shift going forward. It kind of works, but it could have done a lot better. But regardless, Wolves winds up being a really good song for me that I didn't appreciate Todd kind of shitting on in the same way. I guess I've kind of got a thing for nocturnal instrumental themes in EDM. I fucking love it. You know, there's been a bit of a pattern of artists this year being very hit or miss. I think that's most prominently displayed when we look at, you know, the abundance of people who appear on both the best and the worst list this year.
I mean, fuck, Kendrick Lamar's song managed to make its way on my worst list this year, so you know this has been the year of inconsistency.
This also results in artists that have not really been able to make either list being able to have songs that I really like, though.
Be careful with me.
When you take rap's bravado and add the frailty of a breakup song to it, it can be absolutely fantastic.
And if there's one thing I can give Cardi B credit for, it's her ability to be both fragile and confident. This is represented even in the title of the song, which serves as both a request and a warning, reflecting someone whose heart has been broken, but who just wants to move on with their lives and be independent going forward. Really works well.
There's only so many ways to describe how well this song accomplishes its subject matter.
But it really does go through, like, about every stage of a breakup. Specifically one that's the result of one person cheating on the other.
And no, this isn't the best song on the subject matter ever, nor is it even the best one from this year.
But Dax didn't chart, so... I mean, if he did, this song wouldn't even be a contender, let's be real. So I'm gonna get serious for a second, because I'm about to talk about someone who has made some major mistakes in their life and was on the road to improving themselves as people, as a person. But the world never got a chance to see that happen. Because he was killed at 20 years old. 10 days before this music video came out.
I was originally not going to put this song on the list at all.
Because as tragic as the circumstances behind Tentacion's passing are, I'm not one to judge music based on that. That being said, even without the context of the music video, which honestly, with all the imagery and stuff in the music video, I could make an entire video on the music video itself without even paying that much attention to the song. But even without that, this is still really good.
To explain why it almost didn't make the list, I feel like I need to talk about another single from the same album, Moonlight.
Which is overly mumbly and way too short for my liking. See, there's a difference between Moonlight and Sad, even though they're roughly the same length. Sad is also a very short song, but there's a key difference. Moonlight doesn't really feel like a complete musical thought, if that makes sense. It feels like there's more to that just wasn't written. Sad, on the other hand, even with how short it is, does feel complete. That's the key difference. And I initially disqualified Sad from this list because of how short it was, and then I listened to it more, and it's like, No, actually, this is about the length that this song needs to be. So, yeah.
It's very possible as well that the context of its release grants this song quite a bit of power it wouldn't otherwise have.
And I'm willing to admit that, but, you know, the context behind this song's release is just way too powerful to ignore if that's the case. I mean, think about it. This is a song about being unwilling to let go, made released right after the artist's death. Fuck, dude. Then again, maybe I was just looking for a song about codependency. Who knows? If there's one thing that Drake did this year, other than make manipulative music videos, I would say it's probably show up on other people's songs, because he's Drake, so he's going to make them a hit.
In the case of someone like Migos, the song is probably better without him.
In another case, though,
you have a perfect storm of beat switch-ups and vocal delivery to turn Travis Scott and Drake into the new Watch the Throne.
as much as, you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce wanted to make themselves the new Watch the Throne.
I already like Travis Scott because of his tendency to take things that other rappers use very poorly and make them much more palatable, in part because of his sludgier style and bits of clever wordplay sprinkled in just the right places to hold his lyrics together.
I would have never called him, like, the best rapper, but he's always been someone that I've been, you know, kind of happy to listen to.
In some ways, this is also the culmination of everything that was great about Drake's Scorpion.
Namely the up-tempo sampling and the well-executed production, along with the songs where Drake's vocals tend to blend with the beat very well. That's just it. You take, like, one of the best aspects of Drake's music, the production. He gets good producers on his shit. You combine that with Travis Scott's vocal ability. Mix it all together, and even if they're not really saying anything that means anything, well,
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
you know what? I actually already wrote something on this song for my review of the album this comes from, so let me just go ahead and copy paste that over here.
This is probably the song on Man of the Woods that best exemplifies what Justin was going for on that album.
It seems to dive deeper into the country fried feel that the album was going for, but at the same time it doesn't. It's definitely more pop-centric, but it throws some country elements in there, and honestly, it turns out being quite a good mix.
Okay, yeah, it's a little repetitive at points, but the use of harmonies changes just enough for it to not be boring.
The electronic warping sounds and the claps and clicks from the drum mix really mix well with the acoustic guitar. And this is kind of what I was hoping for with Justin doing this sort of country style in this album. It's unique and it catches the ear, but not like in an annoying or bad way like some other songs from Man of the Woods.
I also probably should have given Chris Stapleton a chance before now, because he's got pipes.
I mean, I'm not exactly expecting Chris Stapleton to get another crossover hit due to the glass ceiling that country tends to have on the pop charts, especially nowadays, so I may as well praise him while I have the chance to. That being said, let me point out something out. While most country tends to operate more on the strength of its songwriting than on the strength of its vocalist,
Chris Stapleton has the range and vocal acuity of an R&B singer, even with the drawl and rasp of rock or country.
I mean, he doesn't really get a whole lot of a chance to do that here, but, well, like I said, I'm not expecting him to really cross over again anytime soon, so this may be my only chance to say something. Puns. I got them. You know, every single year that I do this, I honestly expect for somebody to have some kind of hate for me for, you know, putting something on the best list they didn't like, or putting something on the worst list that they did, or something not meeting my criteria so it doesn't end up on either, or something like that. And so far it hasn't happened. You guys have been very good about it, even when you've disagreed with my opinion, and I certainly appreciate that. But I always still expect it. Especially considering I did have a video where I simply expressed an opinion, and I got a lot of backlash for it. And, you know, especially after that video, I think I finally do, though. I finally have something to say in preparation for such a reaction. Who called me?
What? Put two of my favorite artists together on one song and I like it? Shock of shocks.
I think after the past 2 years, it shouldn't really be that much of a surprise that this song is at the top of my list. For those of you who've been living under a rock, this song is from the soundtrack to the movie Black Panther. And for those of you who missed my worst list, I pointed out the tendency for, you know, soundtrack songs to drown out the identity of the artist over the identity of the movie itself, the property.
And sometimes you get a song that blends both of them pretty well, especially if their identities are kind of close together.
This is a song that could not have been made by any other combination of artists about any other film. This is the perfect storm of how you make a good soundtrack song.
See, King's Dead from the same soundtrack doesn't work because it's just a rap song that happens to mention Black Panther stuff at one point.
See? And after any attempts to actually be about the movie become forced, this song, though, even when it's talking about things that aren't really directly stuff that relates to what's going on in the movie, they present it in such a way where you can actually relate it back. Rick Ross tried to do this a little bit on Purple Lamborghini. He was a little bit weak in that department. There's some things that just plain don't make sense being talking about Suicide Squad. But this song nails it. One of the best soundtrack songs that I've heard in a long time. The best hit song of 2018. Period. End of discussion. Don't at me. Video's done. Don't even need any more than this.